right here.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited. This is going to be the first session of our YouTube series bootcamp. My name is Alex. I work at Metricool. I'm a growth specialist here. And today we're joined by Nil again, and he's going to be going over some really cool YouTube ads activation practices. So I'm going to give it a couple minutes. I'm going to let people go into the chat. I do see that there are people over on the June 8th video waiting. So I'm going to tell some of my team member to bring them over here. But thank you for letting us know about that. But yeah, if you want to drop where you're tuning in from and what you're most excited about to learn today, that would be really great. And then we'll get started here in just a few seconds. Do you want to introduce yourself, Nil, while we wait for people to trickle in case anyone wasn't here in that first initial webinar?
Amazing, perfect. Thanks for the intro, Alex. And I'm really looking forward to spending the next few hours, sorry, with everyone talking about YouTube ads. It's our first session for the bootcamp. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Neil. I work at Google and YouTube. I'm based here in the Dublin office for EMEA, and I'm a strategic partner manager. And I work closely with Metricool. And as I said, I'm really excited to be here today, and also drop in the chat where you're from so I can see where everyone's from.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pop on the presentation on the screen so we can get started.
Perfect. I'm just going to quickly do like a fun fact part so we break the ice for the session. Again, my name's Neil. In today's session, last session, I shared what I'd learned what I recently learned from YouTube and the type of content I like to consume. And for today's session, I'm just sharing what I've recently watched on YouTube and why I watched it. So there's 3 examples of things I like consuming on YouTube. One, I'm a huge fan of the CNBC Make It channel. It's super inspiring to see like entrepreneurs, young individuals that are starting their careers, and kind of gives me advice and inspo on what to do and see how others are doing it. Then we have Nude Project. Nude Project is it's a brand based in Spain. It's super interesting. They have one of their strategies was to grow was through really cool, innovative podcasts that they upload on YouTube. So I'm a huge fan of their podcast series. They have like over 1 million subscribers, and they're known like their brand basically was born out of their podcast, which is interesting to see how they did that. And the third type of videos I've recently watched are from the Food Ranger. He has over 6 million subscribers. He's huge for those who are into food and discovering new places. And in this case, he was discovering China. And I was just looking at some videos on cool street food he was having. So, as mentioned before, we're on the first session of the bootcamp. Today's session is focused on how to plan your activation like a pro. This YouTube Metricool bootcamp series is a series of 3 sessions in total. The first one is focused on planning, as I mentioned now. The second one is going to go over creatives, what you need to do to activate a YouTube ads, and what type of assets work the best based on the type of campaign you want to select and your goal. And the third session is measurement, because again, if we can't really see success if we don't measure properly. So that third session is going to be all about how we can measure the success of YouTube, how attribution works, and how we can see the whole value of working with a full funnel strategy with YouTube ads. And these sessions are going to be very dynamic. We're going to do a quick cheeky little quiz before each session and just test out everyone's knowledge of what they learned last session. And for those who participate in all 3 sessions, you're going to receive a certification from Metricool and YouTube, just giving a check that you attended this, you did your homework, and you were active in these session series that we've brought to you. And so Metricool and I did organize a session 2 weeks ago. It was the week of, it was a really cool week because it was YouTube's 20th birthday. We celebrated YouTube, and it was really fun at the office. We had a few activities, and it was really cool too because I think it was the day of YouTube's birthday, in which I got the chance to kind of give the overall the overall roadmap of where YouTube is and what it's become in the last 20 years. So to test everyone's knowledge. I'm not sure if everyone was there, but I just want to test everyone's knowledge on YouTube and see where we're at. I have a few questions that I want you guys to answer, and I'm just going to bring them up in the upcoming slides, and you can just answer on the comments part what you think the correct answer is. That way we keep it fun and engaging. So the first question is related to our roadmap. So before YouTube hosted billions of videos, does anyone here know what specific need or purpose did YouTube first serve? Was it A, it was born as a music platform? B, it was a podcast library? C, it started as an online dating site? Or D, it's always been a video sharing platform? Does anyone know the answer? Anyone would pop it up in the chat?
We'll see if anyone guesses.
If anyone guesses. Do you have any guesses, Alex? Or did you already see the
I do
slides?
know the answer, but I do see that we have two C guesses.
Yes, and that is correct. So YouTube did start as an online dating site, which is kind of crazy to think that because now it's a global video sharing platform. For those who don't know, YouTube's original slogan was tune in and hook up. And it's great to see how it evolved and kind of changed its a value proposition. It's now the world's largest video sharing platform. Talk about a rebrand and refocusing the idea. So yeah, that's something I didn't really know much about. So I learned recently.
I didn't either.
So the second question is related to YouTube Shorts. So we did speak about how YouTube Shorts was growing really rapidly in the last session, and how more and more people were going to YouTube to watch shorts not only on their phones but in other uh, format and in other platforms such as TV or their. So the question here is approximately how many views do YouTube Shorts generate on a daily basis? Is it A, 70 billion daily views? Is it B, 100 million daily views? C, 2 billion daily views? Or D, 23.5 billion daily views? Do we have any guesses in the chat? We have a guess saying D, 23.5. Is anyone gonna
Oh, we have
guess
a
B,
B guess.
150 million, 150 million? Okay. Last session, we had a like an introductory session a few weeks ago. This is the first session of the boot camp. We have another answer saying B, and I'm just gonna. So the correct answer is A, 70 billion daily views. And what I think is really interesting is that each month, over 70% of our channels that upload content post on shorts, and we have over 100 million YouTube channels. So there's 70 billion daily views, and a lot of our channels that are currently posting shorts. So it's definitely um, it's definitely a place to look out for. And if you have a YouTube channel and you're posting content, definitely look out for shorts. And you can also activate your YouTube ads with shorts. And we're going to talk about how you can do that in today's session. So our next question is, and we're halfway through, we'll start with the session for today's session, is it's a true or false answer, which I guess it's easier to answer because there's only two choices. So the question is, the statement is, all social media platforms seamlessly bridge the gap between short form and long form video from mobile to connected TV. True or false? All social media platforms seamlessly bridge the gap between short form and long form video from mobile to connected TV, meaning that people consume social on different types of platforms such as mobile, TV, or computers. So is it true or false? I'm just going to go ahead with the answer because I think this one's a bit easy. It's false. The correct answer is that YouTube is the only platform that seamlessly bridges this gap. So we've seen a few metrics on how YouTube is being consumed more and more on computer on connected TVs, and this is a really interesting value proposition from YouTube because we see that on one end, this type of way that YouTube is being consumed is growing rapidly year on year, and YouTube is also being positioned as the number one streaming platform out of all the streaming platforms, which is interesting to see, right? Because in some senses, we're positioning ourselves really competitively on the streaming side, and other ones we're positioning ourselves kind of in the social media side. So I always like to say that we're at the sweet spot of content and video. And I think this is the last question. I hope the question here is what percentage of YouTube Shorts users are not on other social platforms in the USA? So they're not active on or actively using these other platforms.
If
The
you did
question,
attend our first session, this one, Nil did mention this in the last one, but if not, give your best guess because it's actually really interesting, like this percentage.
100%. So we have four options. A is 5%, so only 5% of there's no overlap in 5%. B is 40%, C is 90%, and D is 22.4%. Do we have any guesses in the chat? Let's see who's the fastest at answering this. And this is our final question. So we have A,
and D.
5%, another A, D, 22.4%. I see someone remembered the session that we did last. B. So you do have a few correct answers. It took us a bit of time to reach there, but the correct answer is 40%. 40% of the users on Shorts are not on other active social platforms. So that's really interesting to see, especially since we're going to talk about how you can activate on YouTube Shorts because it's going to allow us to get access to that incremental reach that you might otherwise not get on other platforms. So the answer is B, 40%. Well, that wraps it up for today's quiz. We will have another quiz for the second session just to test everyone's knowledge and if you did listen and pay attention to today's session. So stay tuned for that. And now we're gonna start with today's session. So I did mention the first session of the boot camp is focused on planning like a pro. Just to give a context on why we're here today and why we think this session was important and why we thought it was relevant to start with it was basically due to consumer behavior, right? So let's start where we should always start. Let's start with the consumer. I think it's pretty fair to say that consumer behavior is pretty unpredictable now. So I was seeing internally in internal stats that customers on average interact with over 130 mobile touchpoints a day. So that's kind of difficult if especially we're planning a media plan or an advertising strategy just to kind of figure out when and where we should be in the touchpoints because there's a lot of touchpoints. So part of this is accepting that you can no longer predict consumer behavior, but you certainly need to be there where they're searching and informing themselves on when they're making their next decision. And this is why we strongly believe that Google and YouTube Shorts are the only platform that can get you in front of customers across all four of the following consumer behaviors that we see in this presentation. And how we do it is basically at scale, and we reach everyone everywhere. So people that are searching, that are streaming, scrolling, shopping, looking for inspiration, trying to decide where they're going on holidays next, trying to decide what purchases they should be making. They're doing all this. And Google and YouTube can basically bring your product out there and kind of help the consumer make an informed decision throughout this whole complex journey, which we like to call the messy middle, right? So it goes through an oasis of different touch points. And that's why we're here today. And our idea with today's session is kind of help you plan like a pro your YouTube ad strategy and see what type of format makes sense for when and how you can be present through a whole YouTube full funnel strategy throughout your customers' journey. And we also believe that YouTube ads strategy can help you achieve those long-term results that matter. So um, as our audience is fragmented across a number of screens and channels, it's harder for brands to stand out and make a valuable connection. So, and we know that the digital landscape is complex, and reaching to your audience is going to be difficult if you're not present, right? So we believe YouTube is going to allow you to make that connection with your users. And what we see on YouTube is that online users are twice as more likely to discover new products on brands on YouTube. And I think if we just look at our own consumption of the platform, I myself, I'm whenever I go on a trip, I inform myself. I watch travel vlogs. I know in the beauty industry, there's a huge content that's being consumed on makeup vlogs and people trying products and testing them out and kind of reviewing products and giving their honest opinion. So our users are on YouTube, and it's just a matter of fact of seeing how you can leverage the YouTube ads funnel to kind of mark your presence there and be there when they want to look for you. So I thought it was interesting to call out this stat because I think YouTube is a if and we also say this a lot, right? So Google is the world's biggest search platform. If YouTube was considered a search platform, it would be this number two. So we don't directly consider it a search platform, but in many ways it could be one. And the main reason we're here is to address full funnel objectives. So as mentioned before, our customers are they go through an oasis of different touch points. I think we all agree that it makes sense to be active throughout their whole funnel. And now it's easier than ever to address full funnel objectives with YouTube and their YouTube AI funnel. So just to give a recap, there's a YouTube ads full funnel, and this full funnel is basically a series of three types of campaigns that we would recommend based on your objectives throughout the funnel. These three campaigns are powered by AI, and with the reason we say it's not now it's easier than ever to activate on YouTube is because these three types of campaigns are fueled by AI, as I mentioned, but they basically group different types of formats that historically you would have activate individually. And with the power of AI, you can basically reach your objective and just basically tell the campaign, listen, I want to reach, I want awareness. This is my objective. Here are several creatives. Do your magic and get me the best performance ever. So rather than activating three different campaigns, three different formats, which is what YouTube was before. Now it's simplified. We have three types of formats. In the awareness section, we have video reach campaigns. These video reach campaigns are unique combination of the formats we believe are the most ideal to activate and allow for awareness and reach. Then we go down in the funnel. We have consideration campaigns. We have video view campaigns. These are focused on views and getting that consideration part. Again, same story. They basically combine three formats and allow you to get optimized towards CPV, cost per view, and achieve efficient views at scale. And then finally, if we reach the end of the funnel, we have our online sales and lead generation objective. So our driving action objective. Here we have what we call demand generation campaigns. I can imagine some of you have heard about them. These campaigns allow you to generate that demand and kind of close down, then reach your users at the end point of the funnel. These formats are simplified. They allow us to achieve higher results when activating individually and harness the power of AI to do so. So in this session, we're going to cover like best practices for each type of format, kind of see like how you can activate an AI funnel strategy, a full funnel strategy, sorry, and kind of see what objectives and what formats you should be activating, and also how to start. I can imagine many of you may not have started on YouTube ads, and some of you have. We're kind of going to give best practices based on your YouTube maturity, where you should start and what type of formats you should be leveraging, and then how you can scale after you see success in one of them. And that's where we bring the first part of our session is planning for success, kind of the essentials and the best practices. So we saw the three types of formats. I will cover best practices, tips, and insights on how you can activate them. But let's take a step back and see how you can actually plan for them, right? There's a huge temptation, especially I've worked for the past 4 years with advertisers, and there's obviously a huge temptation of seeing results fast and starting in the bottom part of the funnel. This is something you can do, but let's look at the pros and cons of doing that, right? So if we do start on the lowest part of the funnel and kind of target existing customers or customers that are in the market for a product, we are going to see more competition because it's obviously where everyone wants to be, right? And in exchange, we're going to see higher costs. So if we start on the top of the funnel in the future customers, we do see less competition and lower ad costs because of the scalability. And we see this as opportunity to kind of like start with with the upper funnel, and you can capture that demand later. So we can see the different types of strategies that are there, but just know that there are pros and cons of maybe directly, especially if you're a performance oriented advertiser, you might be tempted to starting with existing customers, but we always reinforce the message that Invest in your full funnel, invest in acquiring new customers and getting the word out there on what your product is, because in the long run, you will see benefits of doing it. And we will see this in the upcoming slides. Our recommendation is always to kind of combine the whole YouTube AI funnel, kind of like be present in the awareness part, be present in the consideration piece, and the action part. And we do see great KPIs when advertisers do so. So, for example, let's say that we have advertisers that are working on action and maybe more demand generated advertisers. What we see here is that once they add upper funnel campaigns, they see a huge boost in reach and increment and consideration, right? So they see that people are they're targeting more people at an efficient scale, and their brand favorability, which we do have ways of measuring it. We're gonna see that in our last session. Their favorability does increase when activating mid funnel and upper funnel campaigns. So we're basically going to go over the whole funnel. I'm going to give you tips and best practices on where to start. But just know that the message here is we should be activating a full funnel strategy. Again, we always need to start from somewhere. And this is where I would like to segue to the next part and kind of illustrate like case scenarios on where you could start if you're a new advertiser, so that it doesn't seem all too complex and too abstract for you. So we have two really common cases here, right? So let's say you are an advertiser that's really focused on performance. You're focused on those KPIs, those conversions, and you like to see results fast. And you're considering to start a YouTube campaign because you see the value of it. You want to invest in full funnel and you want to kind of grow your user base, right? Because we do see many times with those advertisers that activate purely low funnel, maybe search, performance max, pure low funnel campaigns, maybe brand campaigns as well on search. You do realize that you're going to reach a glass ceiling eventually, right? People are going to know your product. You're not going to get the word out there. And as much as you invest, you're not going to see much result. In many cases, there's a lot of inventory and opportunity for us to keep on growing. But let's say we do reach that glass ceiling, YouTube full funnel is the next step. So let's say you're a low funnel advertiser and you want to get started, you don't know where. So the hero product here would be your demand generation campaigns. I'll go more into detail on how you can activate them then. This is just more like the theoretical part of where you should start. But demand gen campaigns would be your best starting point, and then eventually you would be increasing in what we like to call funneling up. So you would eventually boost your demand gen campaigns, accompany them with video view campaigns after you see a success in them, and then reach the reach campaigns. And here we have a recommendation that our product team sent over to us. Again, the hero should be demand gen. Our budgets and efforts should be focused on one end, testing that out. Maybe you can dedicate a whole phase on purely demand gen, just working with that, working really well on your creatives, optimizing your audiences. Once you have that controlled and you kind of see, look, I have this mastered, I want to go and level up. The next step would be to boost it with video view campaigns. And here the product team recommends to dedicate 30% of your budget of your awareness budget, and then video reach campaigns would be the next step. And recommendation would be to dedicate 10% of your budget here. So that's like scenario one. Main recommendation, let's start with what's going to generate demand. So demand gen, and then we can level up once we see success there. And then we have other cases, like we have advertisers that are focused on awareness. You're either launching a new product, you want to get the word out, you're new to the market, you're purely focused on awareness. The main message and main objective and the hero product you should be using are video reach campaigns to kind of get out there and reach the masses and kind of reach a percentage of your audience, a high percentage of your audience. And then you're going to boost up your strategy with video views and demand gen once you have that user base consolidated, and you will re-impact them with other types of campaigns, right? So a common scenario is kind of reach everyone, and then we can re-engage with demand gen, with remarketing, and kind of be there present in the multiple touch points that we spoke about before. Again, lots of different formats. I am going to go deeper into each type of format, how you can activate them, how they look like, because I haven't put any pictures on what those look like in YouTube, like in YouTube. So you're going to see examples on how they look like, and also how you can activate them. Before going to that section, I do also, since we're like kind of in the planning phase, we've seen what budgets we would work with and what type of format media mix we should be going for. I do want to present a really cool tool that we have within your Google Ads account. that is going to be really useful for when you do plan your strategies. And this tool is called Reach Planner, the Reach Planner that lives within Google Ads. And I'm going to change my screen and I'll show you like a live demo on how that looks. It's basically a tool in Google Ads that helps with four different objectives. On one end, budget planning. So many advertisers always ask us, how much budget should I invest in YouTube to achieve my goals? So this tool, you basically input what your goal is. Is it awareness, consideration, action? And then it kind of gives you estimates on your budget on what you can achieve based on your objective. So it gives you an estimate on the amount of people you can reach, the amount of views you can get, and even the amount of conversions you could get out of a YouTube campaign. Then you have the marketing objective planning. You can kind of decide if you're unsure of what your media mix is. This platform is going to give you that, and it's also going to help you find the right selection and distribution on what you should be investing throughout the funnel, and kind of give you like insights on what the impact could be. And then fourth, channel planning. I can imagine if you are an advertiser that is present on TV, the Reach Planner does feed off information from Kantar and Nielsen, so you can get access to what a full funnel strategy could look like with YouTube and TV. So kind of see like what the overall reach is and what synergies are there between YouTube and TV. So as promised, we want to make these sessions practical. So I'm going to change my screen and kind of give you a really quick overview on how to navigate the platform, what KPIs you should use, and how you could create a media plan with this tool. So many of you should have it already active in your ads account. If you go to the tools section on the left-hand side and click on Reach Planner, it's there. You basically just make your plan, click on the plus button, and here we have lots of different options. As I mentioned before, you can create just a YouTube ad strategy or a YouTube and TV ad strategy. Just to make it simple for today, I'm going to focus on the YouTube strategy part and kind of illustrate how we could plan for a campaign based on our objective. So here, I would just input my dates. I would input my demographic. So let's say I'm interested in targeting people in the age of 18 to 44. And then I'll just input my budget. So let's say I'm thinking potentially about a budget of 15,000 US dollars for the next month. Again, you can put any budget you want, and then it's going to give you estimates on what you can achieve with that, and you can also change it and kind of see dynamically what different scenarios look like. And then the next part of what you're going to do is, before even selecting the type of objective that you have, is selecting the audience. I did mention I'm going to go and cover the types of formats that we have and kind of like go through the nitty-gritty of the three different types of formats. I am also going to dedicate a section of this training on audiences and kind of help you understand what type of audiences we have in YouTube, because I do feel YouTube ads has a great selection of audiences that can allow you to achieve and reach your target goal. So I'm going to input my audience. They're going to ask me a few other questions, and then finally I'll input what my objective is. So let's say, and I'm just going to freestyle it and select and say that I am an advertiser that has a company that focuses on offering beauty and personal care. I'm going to select an audience that's focused on beauty and personal care. Again, I'm going to give you more tips on what type of audiences you should select in the upcoming slides. To make it simple, I just selected this one. It's going to ask me if I'm open to selecting all devices. I am open. I'm going to let AI do its thing and select the device at its optimal. I'm not going to select anything there. And here I'm going to select the objective that I have. So as I mentioned before, we have three different types of objectives within YouTube ads: awareness, consideration, action. Let's say I just launched a new product in the market. I'm focused on awareness and I want to reach my audience. And here I can view my forecast. It's going to load, and it's going to give me amount of forecast that I can reach with my budget of 15,000 USD. I can move it around, but just the metrics that we see here is that I could reach around 4 million people in the ages of 18 to 44 with 15K, with an average frequency of 1.1. If we are not comfortable with that frequency, we can change it and play it around. I am going to give you best practices on what a good frequency could look like. It's going to give me my total cost per meal, so the total amount of how much it's going to cost to impact 1,000 users, which is going to be $3.07. Again, Take this with a pinch of salt, with a grain of salt. It's an estimate. It's not going to be 100% accurate. Cost changes again. Seasonality also plays into account here, but it could be a great way to kind of see like what a starting point could be, and you have an idea of what costs could be. And here you could play around with the plan and see, listen, maybe I want more budget or less budget, and you could play around and see like what you can reach and what the limit is basically, because eventually you're going to reach a point in this line that it's not efficient to spend more money, so it's going to get flatter and flatter. So you're going to see what that optimal point is in terms of reach of what you can get. And this example is for a view campaign. Sorry, for a strategy that's focused on reach. If you were to input views, we would get metrics related to views, so how many views we would get, what our cost per view would be. And for conversions, we would get an estimate of what conversion of how many conversions we could get. Again, it's all an estimate, especially on the conversions part. Look at it with a pinch of salt. It can vary. We don't guarantee anything with this. Just look at it as a starting point for your media plans and kind of give you an idea with what budget, what you can achieve with it. And something that's brand new within this tool is, again, we're highly recommending advertisers, once they've like tested out YouTube and they're comfortable with demand gen, let's say, and they want to funnel up, you can also see what a whole full funnel strategy would look like. So if you select the advanced plans, which is brand new, you do have the option of funneling up, as we saw before, or funneling down, and you can basically see the overall impact and what media mix we would recommend, and what impact and amount of conversions you would get on the conversions part, the views you could achieve, and the and how much reach you could get. So this is something brand new, and it's going to allow us to have like a holistic view of what a full funnel strategy could look like. I'm not going to go more into detail. Again, it's a platform that's available within your Google Ads accounts. Play around with it. It's pretty self-intuitive. Test it around if you're curious, and let us know how it goes. I'll ask you in the next session if anyone did sink in and tested it out.
I love that you can see like the recommendations of like how much of a percentage you should do for each of them. I think that that's also really helpful, especially if you're just starting out. So definitely try it out, guys, so that we can talk about it a little bit more in the next session.
Yes. So now we're moving to the second part of the session, which we're going to talk about audiences. There's a huge so in the work I've done in the past years with advertisers, I do see like two main things that allow us to get success on YouTube ads. On one end, it's having a really powerful creative, and we're gonna have our third session of the bootcamp series in June, based on creatives. That's sorry, not the third one, the second one,
End of May. Yeah.
end of May. So sooner than I said. This session is gonna be really fun because we're gonna go through live examples. We're gonna see videos. It's gonna be very dynamic, and I'm gonna go over like what best practices look like from everything we see in YouTube. So one aspect of success is definitely having a good creative, and the second part is um, targeting the right audience. Because many times I see many campaigns that have a audience that I think is not the optimal one, and if we target better and we have a good creative, we can definitely get our word out there and optimize better our results. Because when we look at the whole overall strategy, doing the purchase part and planning part, we have many tools within Google Ads and YouTube Ads. We have a reach planner that we saw before, and with our AI funnel, it's kind of easier to select the format that you want. The part we need to work on the most is having a good creative and reaching your audience. And that's why I thought it was interesting to dedicate this part just to cover one of the parts that I think is of huge success for YouTube ads. Just kind of like taking a step back and having like a holistic view on how in the past years and centuries we've been marketing and reaching our audience. So we all know this. In the past, mass marketing was a thing. Advertisers were active on TV, radio, billboard, print ads, and couldn't really reach a specific niche and audience. So we've evolved since then, and while we do recognize that having a wide reach is very important for brand awareness and positioning, we need to understand who our audience is and how we can reach that potential audience. So if we look at this room, for example, we know as a fact that all these people sitting down are not are not our customers, and maybe won't even buy our product. Because on one end we have people that already have our product that maybe doesn't make sense to introduce our product. We have people that are huge advocates for the competition, which maybe it's interesting to target them. And then we have users that due to demographics are not in the market for a product. So we have a huge opportunity here of like kind of finding that niche. And with digital marketing and how it's evolved in the last years, we can definitely target and understand who our audience is and kind of profile what type of phase they're in, right? So we can see, we can kind of like take patterns and see like and understand in what stage of their purchase they're in their journey they are, if they're looking for a product, if they've abandoned their shopping cart, if they want to try something new, if they're traveling soon, if they want to go on a trip, or if they're constantly watching videos related to beauty, and kind of segment to that specific type of person. So it's super important to understand our audience beyond its demographics. And here I love illustrating this following example because I think it's really interesting to see um, what can happen if we only segment to demographics and we don't really unleash the whole power of the segmentation options that we have with Google ads and YouTube ads. So here we have two types of profiles, person A, person B. They're both born in 1948. They both grew up in England. They both married twice and have children and are both really wealthy. So let's say I'm an advertiser that I think those type of people, those type of that type of audience is my target. I just want to ask if this is optimal. I just want to illustrate that if this is optimal or not, and I want to see if anyone can guess who these people are. If you think these people are similar or not. So if anyone has any guess, and I'm guessing not everyone's going to be able to guess it, but if you think these two profiles are similar, maybe we can think about it. But I'm just going to illustrate the example to cut to the chase. The actual example here is on one end we have King Charles, and on the other hand we have Ozzy Osbourne, and we know as a fact that these two these two profiles are very very different. They have different tastes, different interests, and are very much likely not in the market to buy the same thing. So two very different people who require very different ways to be spoken to. Sorry. So I just thought it was interesting to kind of illustrate that example because we always have advertisers that maybe segment demographically or don't really um, take the time to understand who our audience is. And we see cases like that in a YouTube ad strategy that we've just segmented to UK age, a specific age and a specific stage in their in specific segmentation that's not too precise.
I thought that that was a super interesting example because I would have never guessed. Like when I was going through the presentation, I was like, "Oh, that was not what I where I thought this was heading." But kind of just continuing on the conversation of like how to target your audience, I want to ask the question of like how can we tailor our ads to different people? And I wanted to ask the audience if you are familiar with buyer personas. These might at the base level, it might seem very obvious, but buyer personas are imaginary characters, and these are things that represent your real clients, the people that you want to target, and essentially your ideal customers. Buyer personas are super helpful in marketing. And going back to Nill's example of King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne, even though they have those base similarities, of course, when you actually reveal who the people are, you would see that they are essentially still completely different, even though they have a couple of characteristics that are the same. So we are not going to want to target the same ad to King Charles that we would target to Ozzy Osbourne. So this is where buyer personas can really help you get into that nitty gritty and fine tune those preferences so that those advertisements are speaking to the right people and to the right group. So, buyer personas help you go beyond the demographics. And if you've never ever built one out by yourself, these are a couple of the things that you can include in the profile. Besides the demographics, of course, you can do personal characteristics, you can do goals, motivations, pain points, buying habits, things like their biggest fears. You should be trying to almost create like a real person. Sometimes it helps if you attach a name and an age, and a location, because these things can really help you fine tune those different areas that you want to target. And when we talk about how many buyer personas you should create, there really is no right or wrong answer. It's good to take a step back and look at your business, right? Who are the people that you are trying to target? More than likely, you're going to have more than one type of person. I would say that some people have 3 to 4. Maybe you do have a really niche community and that just is one buyer persona, but you can make sure that you want each profile to represent a portion of your market. And if you do have a type of business that is very like widespread and you can reach a lot of people, I would still recommend to focus on the most relevant for growing your brand or business. On the right hand side here, we have just one that we give out for free at Metricool. It basically just kind of step by step gives you a way to create a buyer persona if you've never done one. And we're going to go ahead and drop in the chat a blog, and it basically outlines kind of the definition of a buyer persona, a couple of examples in different industries, and at the very end, you can find the free downloadable template. And I highly recommend, especially if you are just getting started with targeting your ads, or maybe even if you just want to dial back and make sure that you are targeting the correct people, this is a really great place to start by just filling out the template. And then I also have a little bonus tip for you. So, a great place to start before you create your buyer persona profiles is to review the content you are already creating and to ask yourself these questions. So, in Metricool, and this is a completely free feature, we have a section in our analytics called list of posts or list of videos, just depending on the content format you're looking at. But you can look at this list of posts and videos and see things like your likes, your shares, your comments, your engagement rate. All of these metrics are really valuable because you can see if you're resonating with your ideal customers that way. So, things to ask yourself: can you identify who you're currently targeting? And is your content resonating with who you are currently targeting? So maybe you're not targeting your buyer personas, and that's why the content that you're already putting out there isn't performing that great. This is kind of a great way for you to do a benchmark and check in with yourself to make sure that your strategy is in tune. And then it's also a good place to start for how many potential personas can you identify? Because, like I was saying before, maybe you have 4, maybe you just have 2. It really just depends on your product or your business and who those pockets of people are that you are trying to sell to, advertise to, share your business with. So we are also going to drop in the chat a link to Metricool. So if you would like to try out that feature, it really is helpful. And I would say, do it hand in hand. Look at your list of posts and videos and fill out that buyer persona template. And then from there, you should be pretty good about the people that you're trying to target.
Amazing. Thanks for the tip, Alex. Something definitely to look into and test out in Metricool. Again, we have many audiences. Again, it's a really good best practice for you to define and understand who your audience is. I'm just going to give a quick overview on the types of audiences we have at Google. So Google and YouTube ads. So again, from our perspective, we have over 9 products with 3 billion users. We have great intent on search. We have lots of users consuming really inspiring content on YouTube as a whole. So we have a lot of signals that give us kind of insights on who our audiences are. And we have 3 different types of audience types that we have. And I'm just going to go over them and explain when you would basically use which one for different types of objectives that we have within the YouTube ads funnel. So 3 types of audiences we have. Bring your own data. Here you basically leverage Google tools to use your own data and audience insights, first party audiences, kind of see who you are currently working with. You can then impact people that are similar to those. Then we have audiences built by Google. So with the thousands, millions, billions of signals that we have, we create off-the-shelf audiences built to us, which is like kind of an example. The example we saw when I did the Reach Planner, I selected an in-market audience for beauty products. And then we have custom audiences, which you get to create and define using Google's rich intent and signals. A common example of this would be creating an audience based on user keywords. So you just basically input the keywords that you believe your audience are looking for, maybe even other competitors, whatever you think of, and you would basically impact them through YouTube ads. And here we have like a whole chart with all the different types of audiences that we have and when you'd be using which one based on which objective. So when we go to awareness types of campaigns, we go over demo and detailed demo audiences. These are created by Google, and they are different types of audiences that describe your demo audiences. Then we have affinity audiences, which are basically audiences that have a great affinity to your product and have showed interest to them. These are 2 types of audiences we would recommend for awareness. If we go a bit down in the funnel in awareness, we have life events, so users that are in a specific moment in their life. For example, there's an audience of people that are moving houses or just had kids. You can definitely, if you have a product that you think could resonate with that type of audience, impact them there. Then we have another audience, which I'm a huge fan of, which are in-market audiences. So these are audiences of people that are in the market for your product. So we saw the beauty one before, and it's just a recompilation of people that are in the market for that specific audience. And then finally, for action campaigns, and this is a best practice, again, test out and see what works for you. We can play around with custom audiences. These are the ones you create manually within the Google Ads platform. And customer match, which these are first party audiences, where you basically upload information on who your audience is, remarketing audiences, and similar audiences. So again, if you do see any other audiences that you worked in the past that's worked and is doing really well for you, whether it's a customer match or marketing, you can create a similar audience for that. So that's a theory for audiences. We are a bit short on time, so I'm gonna go to the last part now. Again, I'm not gonna go over the full. We're gonna cover the different types of campaigns in the full funnel strategy. We're gonna start with our hero campaign for performance-oriented advertisers, demand gen. Demand gen, as its name indicates, are a type of campaign that generates demand to drive sales today and tomorrow. So, as I was mentioning before, we do have many advertisers that reach that glass ceiling. Demand gen is going to be that opportunity to grow and kind of give you like the first starting point for you to like wet your feet and start activating on YouTube ads. For those who aren't aware on what demand gen actually looks like, demand gen campaigns can reach up to 3 billion users monthly. They're built upon strength of our existing campaigns today. They reach your audience on YouTube and Google's most engaging surfaces and harness the power of video and image to creatively serve them to your tailor audience and fuel your funnel. So there are multiple touch points and formats across demand gen, and these include YouTube Shorts, YouTube InStream, so video ads that you basically see when you're consuming a video, YouTube Feeds, Discover when you're on your phone on the Google page, Gmail, and Google Video Partners. So many different formats. And Demand Gen harnesses the power of AI with all the information and ingredients you give them to kind of find where they should be targeting your audience. So this is what it looks like. And now I'm just going to give you like best practices on how you can actually use Demand Gen. So the interesting part of Demand Gen is that it can be used for two different objectives. So on one end, it could be used to spark discovery and intent. So basically, reach traffic, engagement, and site actions. And here you'd basically be working either with traffic, so clicks to site, or with micro conversions, where they could be add to carts, engaged views, YouTube subscribers, and you could basically work them on with a strategy that looks like that. Or then you can work on demand gen campaigns to convert intent and basically optimize towards sales and leads or value if you're a retail client. And demand gen basically uses what we call smart bidding, so intelligent bidding strategies. There's one bidding strategy that's focused on clicks, maximizing clicks, and the other ones are focused on conversions, maximizing those conversions, purchasing conversions at a specific cost per action, or working on target ROAS or maximizing the value of them. So up to you to decide in what stage of the funnel you want to activate demand gen in and what type of audience you have. But just know that demand gen can be used for these different types of objectives. And we like to say that it's kind of when we take the funnel, it kind of works on that brand performance. And this is like your checklist. So you are going to get access to this presentation. So you have like this checklist, your go-to guide on how you can build a strong campaign from the start. When activating audiences, the guidance is to basically go over what we saw before when we were looking at the audience recommendations, and also activate optimized targeting. Optimized targeting is a configuration that you activate, and what it does, it basically helps the campaign look for audiences that the campaign thinks would be relevant to reach your objective. So that's the first tip on audience guidance. When we go to bids and budgets, the recommendation is to set a daily budget of $100 a day and at least 15 times your desired CPA just to give it space. Again, this is a recommendation of what we can have and what we should be starting with. And the optimal budget should be 10 to 20% of your performance budget, and it should be incremental, so not taking it from low funnel to demand gen, just so that we're efficient and we're growing. Creative guidance, so you include at least 3 images, 3 horizontal videos, and 3 vertical videos to unleash your YouTube Shorts power. And when it comes to measurement, add conversion tracking. Conversion tracking is super important, especially if we want to measure conversions. We need to be at date with all the privacy solutions that we have from Google Ads, so enhanced conversions. And the ideal tip here is also to use data-driven attribution, just so that you can see the overall impact of demand gen over the funnel. So that's kind of like the checklist on what I would recommend. That's demand gen. We are going to send over the presentation, so you do have this as a tool for you. If we move up to the funnel, to the consideration part, we have this type of strategies that we spoke about before that are focused on views. What we see here is when advertisers activate video view campaigns, and especially when they compare them to maybe individual types of campaigns of the formats that are inside, they see higher consideration lift, so a higher intent of users that want to consider their brand, and searches that come from video view campaigns. And just to illustrate, I'm a huge fan of like making it visual and kind of you seeing what types of formats are there in it. You can see here what type of formats are in video view campaigns. On one end, we have in-stream campaigns, which are the skippable ads that you see when you watch a video within the video. Then you have in-feed ads, which are kind of seamlessly integrated through YouTube, again with a thumbnail. And then we have shorts. And again, we see more views when activating this type of campaign, which is a multi-format campaign. And we definitely see a lower cost when it comes to cost per view, because these types of campaigns optimize towards a bidding strategy that's known as CPV, cost per view, and it's going to allow you to get the lowest cost per view possible, so the highest amount of people watching and viewing your video. And when we say view, it's watching more than 5 seconds of a skippable ad in this case. I just want to double down on in-feed video ads. So these are kind of integrated seamlessly through YouTube ads. They're a huge part of video view campaigns, and this is how they would look like. We have a checklist here on what you should be looking out for. When it comes to campaign structure, I ideally allow for 3 days to the campaign to normalize, to get over that learning period. For demand gen, especially if you're optimizing towards conversions, I forgot to mention before, give it a week or two just to go over that learning period. For video view campaigns, give it those 3 days to kind of normalize. There's always fluctuation when launching any type of ads within YouTube or Google, so just know that. And another best practice from our product team is to consolidate all assets in a single ad group, as optimization is done on an ad group level. Bidding strategy, if you're not sure of what your CPV could look like, you have the reach spanner to give you a recommendation on what a CPV could look like. And when you also do create the campaign, after you input the audience, the Google Ads tool gives you a recommendation of what a good CPV could look like. Creatives, I've given you a checklist on the types of creatives you have. Since it's different formats, different types of platforms that you could be working on, you have different types of creatives. And then when it comes to targeting, obviously use different types of audiences from demand gen. Contextual targeting is interesting. And again, live events and in-market audiences are relevant here, as well as custom audiences that you can create. Finally, we're reaching at the end of the session, and we will have time for Q&A in case you have any questions on the different types of formats. So when it comes to an awareness strategy, we have video view campaigns. These video reach campaigns, mix bumper ads. These are videos that are 6 seconds or less. Non-skippable ads in which you can deliver your message fully in 15 seconds. And then skippable ads where you can achieve attentive reach at scale. And just adding another layer here, video reach is available in 3 different types of flavors, which are 3 different types of sub goals that you'd have. And you kind of have 3 different objectives here, right? You can either maximize your unique reach and go for an efficient reach, which is what we mentioned. You could go through an efficient completions objective, and you basically are optimizing towards users finishing your video. And then the third type of format is target frequency, in which you would basically optimize towards frequency that you want to achieve from the campaign. So just know that the campaign, if you do create it, will ask if you're interested in one objective together. If you're purely focused on reach, focus on efficient reach. And here's an example of what a full funnel strategy could look like. So we think that demand gen could be evergreen, always active, and you would basically launch your campaign with video reach campaign, combine that with a video view campaign, and kind of have that strategy ongoing in the beginning, kind of start with a boom, with a bang, and then capture that intent at the end with demand gen. So that's the video. That's the kind of we've added a checklist for each type of formats. We've given best practices on what good audiences look like. We've given tips on how you can plan your strategies with the Reach Planner. I want to open up the floor for a Q&A if we do have any questions on any of the strategies we spoke about today. If you as an advertiser have launched any of these and have any questions, now is the time to ask them, and we can cover them live throughout this in the next minutes.
Yes. And I also want to add that if you are someone that came in later to the session, this will be the recording to this will be sent to you so you can rewatch it if you missed anything. And I also wanted to add too that if you are missing any of the links, we will go ahead and drop them again in the chat. But please feel free to leave your questions because we really want this to be as informative as possible. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat. I'm going to go through the top and just see if we had any like technical questions real quick.
Of course. And I'm just going to plug in the next session that we have. We have the next session of the bootcamp in which we're going to basically go over how you can build winning YouTube ad creatives. The reason we think this is super important because 49% of success of a campaign is thanks to great creatives, and they contribute to a huge part of revenue and returns on YouTube strategy. So we will be going on what good looks like. We have a really cool framework, which is known as the ABCD framework. I'm not going to give more giveaways on what this framework looks like, but we're going to dedicate a part of each session on each part of this framework. So A is specific best practice, B is another one. And again, lots and lots of examples on what good looks like. We want to make it very actionable for you to get inspired and see how you can activate and what a good creative looks like.
Amazing. I'm super excited for that session. I feel like that's going to be my favorite session. So definitely tune in, everyone. I did find one technical question. Someone asked, how do we prove we were in all the sessions? So I know that not everyone can make it live. So as long as you either watch it live or watch the replay, basically at the end of the 3 sessions, we are going to provide a form. This form will have you fill out a little bit of information just about the things that you learned. And then from there, we will be able to verify that you were an attendant at all the 3 sessions. So don't worry if you came in late or if you have to miss one, just make sure that you do rewatch them if you have to watch them, the recordings, and then make sure to keep an eye out for that form at the end of the 3rd session. Okay.
Perfect. I see a question here. Can you explain how ads are delivered via other platforms to individuals who subscribe to YouTube Premium? YouTube Premium is an adless option for YouTube ads, but if you do activate Demand Gen or some of the other YouTube campaigns, since part of the format is outside of YouTube, so you can impact in Demand Gen on Gmail, on Discover, you would be present there if someone's YouTube Premium, or even on video on websites. We have a question saying my Reach Planner is unavailable in my Google Ads account. It says to contact my Google Ads rep, but I don't have one. My recommendation here would be to open a chat with support and see how you can get access. And I'm sure they'll be able to guide you on how you can activate that in your account.
Perfect.
Then we have another question from Steven saying, what is a minimum budget that makes sense? $100, $1,000, $10,000. Again, depends on what type of format you're activating. If it's demand gen, we gave a best practice on what budgets should look like. If we're a bit conservative on budgets and we don't want to go all in, I think demand gen is definitely a great place to start. With the Reach Planner, you can get an idea of what you can achieve with demand gen. Again, the recommendation is to take your CPA, your cost per acquisitions from your Google Ads account, and multiply that 15, or activate with $100 per day, if I'm not mistaken. For video view campaigns and video reach campaigns, my recommendation would be it depends on where you want to segment. How big is your zone? If you're segmenting through a whole country, it's a state. How big is your audience, and kind of determine if it makes sense, what budget makes sense there with the Reach Planner and the audience you have in mind. But great question, because I always get the question on budgets, and I think the Reach Planner is a great starting point for you to kind of investigate and understand what a good budget should look like.
I definitely think budget is always something that's a little bit difficult for people. So I think it's so great that the Reach Planner can kind of guide you in that, because that is something that, I mean, isn't always like an intuitive thing, like how much money you should be spending.
And we also have a best practice. So for reach, which I didn't mention, for reach planners, our recommendation to have impact is to reach around 40% of your audience. So when you go to Reach Planner and you kind of select the audience you want to reach to, you're going to see what 40% looks like and what an ideal budget would be. Again, don't get scared if it's huge, because maybe your audience is huge, but overall, globally, the product team recommends to have 40% reach on a reach campaign. Perfect. We're at time. We do have a last question, which is more technical. Will not technical, sorry. Well, the question is, will you send the presentation? We will be sending the presentation.
Yes, yeah, we can send the presentation. I believe in our post email, it will only have a few other resources, but we will send the presentation in a separate email. So just keep an eye out for that.
Amazing. And thank you everyone for connecting. We had an hour-long session. We finished at the mark. I hope you got to uncover the world of the AI funnel and have an idea of what tools we have and how you can activate your campaigns.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for joining. We're super excited for the next session. Just remember, May 29th at 11 a.m. EST. You will get a reminder email, and we will put the correct link this time. So thank you all for realizing that and hopping on over to the correct link. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye. See